So this video comes from one of Zav Girl's live streams. In this particular video, Zav Girl had made contact with some people who had been camping at Prosser campgrounds the same night that the party occurred, and Zav Girl had asked them a number of questions. So in this video, Zav is relaying the information that she got from these campers. She got the information via messages, text messages, and voice messages. So while she doesn't show the actual text or play the voice messages, she's relaying what's been told to her. I found this quite interesting because to me, it, on one hand, verifies a few things we've heard, or not necessarily verifies, we don't know if these people are legit, but it certainly fits in with things we've heard, but it also raises additional questions. Now, before I jump in to the assessment, you can probably hear that once again, my co-host is Miss Snorri Chihuahua.
Dude, I talked to a girl. I asked her to come on. I'm not sure if she's going to come on. It's freaking so awesome. So she was at Prosser on August 5th. She was camping that night. So somebody to email me, and it's legit. I reached out to her. It's not like it's like somebody reaching out, oh, they're fakes. They're just trying to inject themselves. No, I reached out to her. So somebody emailed me. They're like, hey, look, somebody was camping this day. And it was the day. I mean, you see pictures. It's August 5th. And it wasn't even like I'm making a big deal that, oh, this is the day that, about Kylie. It was just showing she was at Prosser, And so I contacted her. I'm like, hey, would you be willing to talk to me and answer some questions? And she's like, yeah, sure. So we've been kind of like going back and forth all day. And I just been asking her things. And
now, while Zav Girl has somewhat recently made poor choices that were perhaps a little bit unethical, anyone who used to follow her channel probably would agree with me that when it comes to this kind of thing, she doesn't make shit up. So what she's doing here is she's establishing the credibility of these people. These people weren't after clout. They weren't someone who hopped up on a panel or 12 panels and started trying to share their story, or someone who contacted creators to share their story. This was someone who Zav Girl had seen photos showing, probably on social media, showing that these people had been present at Prosser on that weekend. And so Zav Girl reached out to them. So to me, that does establish a bit of credibility to what they are saying, because they were not someone who was coming forward trying to sell a story. They were someone who was approached for their story. So I agree with what Zav is saying here. That does add a level of credibility to what they are saying. I think, though, there is one thing that we do have to recognise, and that is people who were camping in the area on the weekend of the party. You can't necessarily rule out the possibility that they were involved in the party. So they may give a story to people who approach them in relation to their experience, but if they were involved in the party, they may not want to share that information. So, and I'm not saying that these people were, and it sounds to me that they actually weren't. When you hear what Zav says, it sounds like they didn't have any connection with the party. But I think it's something that we do need to keep in mind when we listen to accounts of people who were in the area on the night.
But so this is what she's had to say so far. You guys want to hear? It's kind of crazy because the timeline is all different then. Kind of. Okay. Her and her boyfriend were camping there Friday night. So I asked her, I said, well, let me slow down, Chad. So I asked her, like, how late were the kids partying? Did you hear him? Did you see him? I mean, what's going on? What did you hear? What did you see? You know, obviously what we all want to know. And so she said the music stopped about 1 a.m. is when the music stopped. So she did hear him. She's like, oh yeah, we heard the music. It was loud, but it stopped at 1.
Now, from what I can remember, there hasn't been a lot of solid information in relation to the music when it was turned off or how loud it was. We had the account from one of the Jane Does where she claimed that the generator was switched off at 12 and that the music and the lights went off. But we've also heard people say that people were playing music from their vehicles. So I don't think we've heard any other accounts saying when the music was turned off. So these people saying the music was turned off at 1 o'clock and that it was loud could be the way it actually was. We know that there was mass exodus at 12:30. We don't know a lot other than that. We do know that the original flyers and the original information was asking for people who had seen Kylie after 1:30 and that they believed that she had been seen at 1:30. So perhaps there is a tie-in here. It could just be totally irrelevant information, of course.
So that kind of goes along with what they said, 12:30, there was a line of cars. Oh, that's what I want to ask her about, the line of cars. She said all night there was people coming in trying to look for the party. It was packed. She said they go there every year, but this year was the most packed because of that party. She said people trying to find it, going in and out. Okay.
So it's interesting that they say the place was packed and that it was far busier than what they are normally used to. Because that does kind of lean towards the narrative that we've been given of there being 300-400 people there. Now, in terms of cars having gone in and out all night, that could also account for the numbers in terms of people are saying, well, you couldn't fit 300 or 400 people there all at once. Perhaps there weren't 300 or 400 people there all at once, but it was spaced out throughout the night. And I know that we have the account of a string of cars arriving at 9:30 and then leaving again, or another string of cars leaving at 12:30. But in terms of single cars coming and going, that's probably not something that people would have paid that much attention to. So when we have that account from those other campers who said that they saw a string of cars leaving at 12:30, there was no definite clarification about other cars coming and going in between times.
So, hold on, I'm just going to go in order from the notes that I took. So she said that she saw Kylie's car multiple times going down to the boat ramp, back and forth down to the boat ramp. So and I said, okay, well, what time? I said, because was she really there? Because the story is she didn't get there till 10 with Mags, and then Mags stayed up until 10 to 15, 10, she would basically 10 to half an hour. They say 10 to 30 minutes, 10 minutes to 30 minutes that Mags stayed and left. So I said, what time did you see her? Because I'm thinking like, okay, you keep seeing her going back and forth to the boat ramp. That sounds like maybe that was earlier. I didn't even ask. All I said is, what time did you see her? And she said it was earlier in the day that she seen Kylie's car going back and forth to the boat ramp. I said, was she by herself? Did you see anybody in it? I said, I know at the time you're not thinking to, look at these details because you don't know what's going to happen. She said, honestly, I think she's by herself, but I can't. She's like you said, I don't know. I wasn't looking for people. I just saw the car back and forth.
Now, this to me is a quite interesting piece of information there. So she's talking about seeing Kylie's car, or the car that she believes to have been Kylie's car, going back and forth to the boat ramp through the day. So this is even before the time when Kylie apparently turned up at the party. Now, a few questions I have here is that, can she confirm that it was Kylie's car, or it could have been a similar car? If you are camping somewhere and you see a car, you might remember the shape and the colour, unless it's got some significant meaning. Although that said, if it was going back and forth, you may have started paying more attention to the vehicle. It also depends on where these people were camping in terms of how close they were to the road where this car went past them. Now, I'd be very, very curious to know if these people were presuming that the car went to the boat ramp because it went in the direction of the boat ramp, or if they could actually see the boat ramp from their campsite and they saw the car at the boat ramp. I'm actually leaning towards them not being able to actually physically see the boat ramp, because then they would be able to say what the car was actually doing, but they don't seem to have any idea what was going on. So what I'm going to speculate here is that this could fill in that big block of missing time. Is it possible that after Kylie had been hanging out with Kate, that she ended up at Mag's house? And that now we know that Mags was also friends with Sammy. We know that Mags lived only a few doors down from Sammy. Is it possible that Mags was helping organise the party? And perhaps she convinced Kylie to do some of the running around. So perhaps Kylie was helping take stuff in for the party, and maybe that's how she got lured into going to the party in the first place. Perhaps the original request was to help with taking stuff in to set up the party, and then that request moved on to, hey, well, why don't you come to the party then? Just speculation. There's nothing to prove that either way, but it is definitely interesting, and I'm very curious to know if this was Kylie's car that was heading back and forth from the boat ramp throughout the day. It would be great to be able to get more details from these individuals, but I'm gathering that it would be almost impossible now to track them down. I'm wondering also, in terms of, I know there was one point in time when people were speaking about Kylie's car having been seen at the boat ramp, but I'm wondering if it came from listening to this account on Zav Girl's channel, or it could also have come from, there was one witness account that referred to a car over at Boca being stuck in the mud at the boat ramp the day after Kylie went missing, and then apparently this car was there for a period of time and then it vanished. So I don't know if this story that Zav is giving lends credibility to accounts of her car being seen at the boat ramp, or if the story of her car being seen at the boat ramp comes from this live stream. What came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean?
And I was like, so it was early in the day? She said, yeah, it was early in the day. She'll ask her boyfriend to get like a specific time, but it was definitely like earlier. So it was before 10 o'clock, And I said, and she said, and then she said the weirdest thing happened. She said it like real late at night. She said it was like, early in the morning, a car. She said it was 4 doors. She couldn't tell what kind because it was dark. But she said after that's just when they went inside, because it was like weird. So a car full of 4 guys, they come into the campground. They have their shirts off. They get out of the car. They get something out of the car, which she said her boyfriend thinks it was a bat. And then they start running around the campground like with their shirts off with a bat or something, whatever they got out of the car, and just like screaming and running around like 4 guys. She said it was so weird. We just like went in after that. We were done, you know. It was just really weird.
Now, in terms of timelines, I don't know if this account came out before Megan started going on with her account of boys with wiffle bats who were standing on a car and yelling and blocking the road, and that's why Kylie ran into the water. I have noticed from previously when I was going through other Zav Girl live streams that there were things that people had speculated on Zav Girl that Megan then later came out with as factual information. So those are things that I pretty quickly threw out from Megan's accounts, knowing that they were not even just passing on something she'd been told personally, but passing on something she'd heard being speculated on in a live stream. For example, her talking about it taking 36 seconds for a car to sink was a discussion on Zav Girl quite some time beforehand, where someone who was a volunteer rescue kind of person had spoken about how quickly cars could sink, and that if a car had gone in the water, and this was before Kylie was found, that if a car had gone in the water, it would depend on if the windows were up or down, and if the windows were down, it could sink in as little as 36 seconds. So there are definitely, if you go back through Zav's many, many really, really long live streams, you will see a few things where Megan has clearly got ideas from there. So I don't know if this is one of those instances. But it is certainly interesting that these individuals have mentioned a carload of boys rocking up without their shirts, running around, making a racket, possibly with bats. Because it sounds like this is something that possibly did actually happen. Now, I know that some people, including Megan, have used this to imply that whatever happened to Kylie happened at the hands of these boys who were outsiders, had nothing to do with the party, and therefore Sammy is absolved from any kind of responsibility. But here's something to consider. So this was apparently quite late, and they were blocking the road. And we've already speculated that they may have been blocking the road to cover for a fight, or to cover while people were trying to figure out what to do because something had happened to Kylie. But we haven't really speculated as to who these boys were. By suggesting that they were outsiders who came to the party, they arrived at the party and started doing this instantly, there is this whole idea that they had no connection with the party whatsoever, like I just said. But imagine you're an 18-year-old girl, you're at a party, you're probably the person who organised the party, and you've done something really, really dumb, and something that's really, really bad, and is going to have huge repercussions on you, unless you can find a way of covering it up. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Now, people have forgotten that Sammy Smith has an older brother who is, I believe, 4 years older than her. 4 or 6 years older than her. Now, I know myself that when I was growing up, I had brothers who were somewhat older than me, and they were quite protective. It's an older brother thing. They tend to be protective of their little sisters. Now, imagine you are 18 and you've just stuffed up big time. You've done something really bad. You're not going to call your parents. Maybe your friends are there with you and they're in it as deep as you are. And you don't know what to do. Who are you going to call? You're going to call an older sibling. Is it possible that these boys in the car that are being discussed could have in fact been Sammy's older brother with friends who she had called on, and they were there to create a diversion and to keep people away from a certain area? We do know, thanks to creators who did dig into Sammy's family early on in the piece, that Sammy's brother is definitely no saint. So would he have stepped in to help save Sammy's ass?
And she said nobody asked them, nobody interviewed them. Because I said, what do you think happened? She's like, first of all, nobody, like law enforcement, nobody interviewed them, which is bullcrap because they were there that night. They should have interviewed everybody there. You know what I'm saying? They should have got a roster of who camped there that night. I mean, this is especially when it was a missing person. Like, this is a missing person. Nobody knows where she's at. They think somebody took her. Wouldn't you want to go get the roster from the campground? You could get a warrant from it, of who all camped. Go interview those people, see what they saw. Like, she said they didn't interview them, which is messed up.
19,000 man hours. And yet you've got people who were camping at Prosser the night of the party who are saying that they were never interviewed by law enforcement. Is this why we've been told that it was an accident? Because it's starting to seem like law enforcement haven't bothered to follow up on any tips that they were given. Were they ignoring tips that pointed towards foul play? I find it really concerning the number of holes in this investigation. And I really do hope that the FBI is still onto this, because otherwise there definitely needs to be an audit on Placer and Nevada counties.
And she thinks foul play. She thinks the same thing. She's like, I think, she said the weird thing is she just sent me her last message. It said she doesn't think that the car was in there, that when the cop searched, like when they searched the dive teams, like we all are thinking, like we think maybe that it was put there after, because how did they miss it? So she's thinking foul play too, and a car might have been put there after. And she also said when they parked. So this makes me wonder if this is what those people were talking about when the big fight, because she said that when those guys came and parked and ran around, she said they were parked right in the middle of the road. So everybody would have had to go around them. They were blocking the road. So it makes me wonder about that story about how that they blocked the road. Like almost like people are thinking they purposely blocked the road and made a bunch of noise so that it could distract from a fight that was going on. It makes me wonder if that was what she witnessed.
When you talk about them actually blocking the road and the fact that they were being really loud, it really does make you think that either they were trying to make enough noise to cover the sound of a fight, or they were making noise to try and scare people away from an area because something had happened and they didn't want people to go down there while they were trying to figure out how to fix whatever had happened. And in terms of a timeline, it would seem that this would fit in as being an event that occurred not a great deal of time after Kylie's phone completely went off grid. So if you are talking about a timeline where something happened to Kylie between 12:03 and 12:33, then these people turning up later and blocking the road and being loud and just essentially trying to deter people from being in the area definitely could fit in with something bad happening and the need to cover it up. This is where it would be really, really good to be able to hear from these campers again to find out if this occurred prior to the music being turned off, because they said that the music was turned off at 1 a.m. So that gives a solid time point to work around. So it would be interesting to know where they can place this on the timeline in relation to that particular point in time.
So this is just some campers that were at Prosser Family Campground camping. They do it every year, and it happened to land on this day of the party. She said it was packed that day. It was way more packed than it normally is every year because of the party. She said all night, all day, people coming in looking for the party. Turned around like, just searching, asking where the party is, looking for the party. Kylie's car seen multiple times in the daytime, going to the boat ramp.
I have to say, I wish Zav had actually shared images of these messages or transcriptions of the voice messages, because I'd like to know if here, when she starts talking about cars being in and out all day and all night, if that was something that Zav added in herself, or if that is directly what the campers told her. That would suggest that the party had started much, much earlier on in the day, and that perhaps the kids had been drinking through the day and then the music started up of a night, because you know how those kind of parties happen. People do sort of warm up to the parties and the music goes on later. Or is this just a kind of a slip on Zav's part and she meant that it was cars going in all night? Curious. Then she also says here, specifically about Kylie's car being in and out during the day. So when she clarified with these campers about it being earlier with Kylie's car, did they specifically say to Zav Girl that it was through the day, or is she interpreting this that way? Either way, I think there's some interesting little nuggets of information in this, and it certainly gives us something more to think about with Kylie's case. Was she at the campground through the day? Was that part of the strategy for getting her there, making her help with setting up? And does this give credibility to the story of the boys with bats turning up? And why? Why would you turn up, run around being loud and threatening, and then have nobody call police? There's definitely something more to that story that we haven't been told. And like I said, can't help wondering if these boys happen to be older siblings, or an older sibling with friends called in to help fix a problem. Thanks for listening. You know the deal. Like, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and leave a comment below.